Welcome back to the Loot Fiends podcast, episode 2. All your player base are belong to us, and they're at war.
So today we're going to look at, there's been a lot of strife in the different communities in different games. Big time in Path of Exile with Harvest League. There's a big... That one was all over Reddit there for more than a couple weeks on whether they were going to keep Harvest or not. The more casual side of the player base obviously is for it because it made loot way more easy to acquire. I shouldn't even say easy to acquire.
It gave the casual base like a taste of what the no-lifers, so-called, or the 1% feels all the time, right? Like it narrowed that gap considerably.
Sure, made a lot more people be able to kill a lot more bosses. Made loot way more, or items way more affordable in trade. Things that would have been considered, a 9 out of 10 items were going for a tenth of the cost they were going for.
Oh, easily.
In a normal league. So therefore it made bosses easier, all of kinds of that stuff, since you had way more damage than you normally would. But on the other side of that, the more hardcore side of the player base said, no, it makes the game way, way too easy. It makes that gear way, way too easy to acquire. Gear that you should probably only get one piece of in a league, if that, you're getting 10, So it made everything way too quick, which
Right.
I tend to lean more towards that side of it because I am that guy that plays 200 hours in 4 weeks in a league, or 150 or whatever.
I'm in the same boat. I agree with that. I think it made the game too easy, and if you make a game too easy, you get, like, with Path of Exile, an example, if you have everybody running around at 99% of total achievable power, right? Or even 90%, well, congrats, you have Diablo 3 now, right? Like that's kind of what happens when you give that's not even a power creep, that's just power.
And sure, it's slapping basically in-game loot in your Hadrig's gift, right?
Right.
Which is kind of what Diablo 3 does. I mean, those sets are the in-game loot. Once you have those, you can go do the in-game. Or it's not even once you have those, you can go do the in-game. The in-game is skewed in D3, in my opinion. But that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah, that's a whole different thing.
But yeah, getting back to the Harvest, it was... Now I get that... I hate RNG for the sake of RNG. I think loot's one thing that people have to balance out, how fast it should be acquirable, how far up the power scale, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's definitely difficult to balance that, and it kind of depends on what the majority of your player base is, I would assume. It's the same argument's been in WoW for pretty much since its inception.
Oh,
right?
I think it's in all loot-based games, right? I mean, that's what every subreddit and before that, you'd have like MMO champion, all the forums. It's always been the I can't get a group because I have a job or I have a family because I don't have as much time to put into the game, so nobody will take me to get better gear because I don't already have better gear.
Right. WoW's handled that in different expansions differently over the years. I mean, and I think they do a decent job of it now because there's catch-up mechanics to get the...
Yeah, you can bust yourself into being ready for like normal difficulty raid tier in like a week, as far as like later in the expansion. Now,
I was thinking more of when the second raid tier comes out, you can pretty easily achieve gear that's equivalent to the first raid tier.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well,
so that you can be more quickly ready for the second raid.
Well, yeah, they scale up like Mythic loot from the 5-mans, and like and Mythic Plus loot gets scaled too. So it's real easy to get caught up to be able to be like included in stuff in raids once a new tier comes out. It's just basically at like expansion launch when people are extremely salty about that. WoW doesn't really go that hard into the no lifers versus that anymore.
And I think because of that methodology of doing that is why.
Right.
Because before, think about it, that then versus Classic, right? In Classic, if you didn't run the dungeons to get your dungeon set, you couldn't get to raiding. And if you couldn't get to that first raid tier, you weren't going to get to go to the second raid tier.
No one's taking you to BWL if you haven't stepped foot in MC.
Right. So you're getting brick walled.
Right.
Or stone walled, I guess I should say. But it's... so I think WoW kind of fixed that for its player base, but there's no real way to do that, or at least fixed it to a decent extent. But there's no real way to do that in PoE other than turning up drop rates as the weeks go by. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which, on one hand, I think is kind of interesting. On the other hand, it would lead to like just mass devaluation of the market, right? Like, sure, your drop rates are higher now, but everybody's drop rates are higher, so now everything's worth 10 chaos.
Well, not only that for the economy, you're like the sense of progression. I mean, you see posts on Reddit, I would say weekly, that are, I've got 18 years in Path of Exile, and I finally killed Shaper, or I finally killed Cirrus 8. Well, how many people like that will the game lose if everybody can just do it in like 3 weeks now? Like everybody. If everyone has Cirrus 8 on farm in 3 weeks, like that, I think that would kill the player base even faster for leagues. You know what I mean? Then because what is it? 6 weeks is the usual retention point where the big drop off happens. In Path, I believe,
somewhere around there, 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the league, depending on the patch, depending on a few things.
I think Harvest had a big exodus at 4 weeks, but like Delirium and Metamorph were 6. I think Metamorph went a little longer, but I think it was 8 for the big drop off for Meta. But they had, they redid the whole Atlas. They put the Conquerors in and everything. So like whenever they do that, the league retention's always sky high. But with, I don't know, Path's probably one of the worst as far as the player base is fighting with each other constantly over, well, how am I supposed to do stuff when I played 35 hours this week and I've got like 45 chaos to my name. And then you have these streamers running around in groups of 6 that are just...
I think the grouping's a whole nother topic.
Well, yeah, but it's...
Because that's a different balance. I mean, even think about it.
Well, I wasn't saying that the grouping of 6 is a problem. They're just seeing how fast everyone's going and how people, like this last league, were dropping 5+ headhunters a day.
Oh, sure. And some of those weren't even the groups. I mean, you were seeing like
Havoc
and Steel and stuff. I mean, if you're a beginner at the game and you're comparing yourself to, or not even a beginner, intermediate or limited playtime, shall we say?
Right.
And you're trying to compare yourself to Steel or Ziz or Raze or Mathel or any of those guys, Datmods. Well, maybe not Quinn, but you're trying to compare to those guys that do play that much and that have invested years of their life into, and this is probably the bigger part of it, the knowledge of the game. Yeah. These guys that have not only spent 4,000 or 10,000 hours playing the game, they probably have the same amount of time out of the game looking up information, talking to people, studying build guides,
theory
crafting, and it's okay. So the part you see is I only get to play 10 hours a week compared to these people's 60 hours a week. So they're going to earn stuff 6 times faster than I am. They also have 10 to 100 times the knowledge.
Right, which translates directly into efficiency, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, when you look at like our first league in the game, we were terrible. You know what I mean?
God, were we awful, weren't we?
With the market, with everything, we made. Well, if it wouldn't have been for a certain RNG blessed person's loot drops, yeah, we wouldn't have made like any money that league.
I don't know who you're talking about, but that guy sounds handsome.
Yeah, there was this gorilla that the league before a bow that was pretty much the bow of bows got nerfed. And then after Breach League, Legacy League is when that happened. In Breach League, we didn't find much of anything. We didn't make much of anything. That was our first. We only played like the last 3 weeks of that league.
I didn't even make it to maps in Breach League.
Right. So Legacy was our first one. We really got up and running. We still wouldn't have made much, but in Breach they nerfed Reach of the Council, which was like the number one bow that every bow build used. Going into Legacy Leagues when they nerfed it. But in Legacy League, they put in a way to get pre-nerfed items going back through the leagues. And then a certain RNG gorilla got that bow and sold it for like, what was it, 18 Exalt?
19 Exalt plus like 2 Exalt in equivalent trade. Which back then was actually a lot of money. People didn't run around. It's not like it is now where you have people that are sitting with 300x on, the first week of the league. But yeah, that's what hooked us on PoE though, was one, hitting the mega lottery drop that can come from literally fucking anywhere, and then the other thing
Relic
was
where keys drop from anything. They weren't even like the leagues now where they only drop off Oshabi. They just dropped.
Right, and well, not only that, it was getting that kind of cash influx and putting together a meta endgame build. It really made me fall in love with the game because I got to explore a lot more, push a lot farther, see things,
Well, you got to explore the whole kind of power fantasy of the game, right? Like you got to that end game, that 90% min-max point, and saw how the game felt compared to how it felt when you first started your character.
Right.
Or even compared to how it felt when you first started maps. And it's a really cool feeling, and I think it drives a lot of why people play these games.
Yeah.
But as to how to fix it in like ARPGs, that's going to be extremely difficult.
There's not really a way to fix it, right? Because you can look at, so ARPGs is probably the hardest one to shorten that gap, because even in Destiny, looter shooters, the Division, still not you, Anthem, still not you. You're gonna hit that camp eventually. You're not gonna have the god rolls unless you get lucky, because that's that especially with the Division and with Destiny, since everything, gun attachments, barrels, scopes, it's all randomly generated.
I think it's a little bit different than those, because those change their end game by usually upping the light level or power level or whatever you want to call it, world tier.
So it's not as bad as in a straight ARPG, because everyone's going to hit that number eventually. It's just some people hit that number faster. You know what I mean?
Right.
But since everything scales to you in Destiny, you don't really feel it. You know what I mean? As opposed to...
you don't really feel that power fantasy.
Yeah, well, you don't feel the, oh man, that guy's 1050 and I'm 1030. The only time you'd feel that is in Trials of Osiris, where they have scaling turned off. The equalizer is disabled. So...
Yeah, and I think that's something we can get into on another one, is that scaling and how that kind of kills the feel of it to some people. Maybe to some it doesn't. But on this, it just feels like for an ARPG, there's no real way, because even in Destiny and Division, there's catch-up mechanics, right?
Right.
Like you come in on World Tier 1 and it doesn't take long to get to World Tier 5 now. Compared to what it did when the game first launched.
When it first launched.
Because that's how they changed the end game. Path doesn't have any tiered system, so there's no real way to put a catch-up mechanic.
Yeah, it's just straight progress the entire time. There's no... Well, I mean, I don't know, you can kind of look at world tier like tiers of maps, right? An awakening level. But that's not, there's no way to catch yourself up to, I haven't played in a while. Okay, cool. I ran this map and it dropped these items I needed that let me go straight to yellow maps awakening tier 2.
I was thinking more of like at the beginning of every league. Say you start the league a week late. Okay, well, the market shifted a bunch, so you're not going to make that first week money that you normally would, which,
right,
by the way, is a huge thing in PoE.
Huge.
So you're coming in a week late. There's no way for you to catch up, or you even come close to catching up with the rest of the crowd, right? Like, it's
right.
going to take you 3-4 weeks of heavy grinding to catch up to people that were playing that first week, where they're at that 3-4 weeks in, to where it kind of equalizes out. But yeah, I mean, that's a really hard thing to do. I think the only real way to fix it, and it's not even something GGG can do, is for the community to fix it themselves, which is a whole lot of helping out people. You know what I mean? And I think part of it's also due to, because of the way Path's economy is, a lot of well-rolled things don't become cheaper as the league progresses.
Oh, there's a lot of stuff that does, though.
There's a lot of stuff that does, but there's a lot of stuff that doesn't as well. And it depends on what you're playing, too, right?
Right.
Like, if you're playing ES, some sort of ES build, ES stuff generally does not become cheaper as the league goes on.
No, but you don't... I don't know. I don't really think it needs fixed. I mean, yeah, sure, I know life path, and I usually kill Cirrus 8, and now I play softcore. I don't play hardcore because it's just, I don't like it. I might dabble eventually, but I usually kill Cirrus 8 on like day 6 of a league reset, day 5, somewhere in there, under a week, right? I don't like the whole, I'm going to use excuses of not being able to play a lot and my gear sucks and everybody else's gear is better than me. You're not competing against anybody in Path unless you're racing like that hardcore ladder. You know what I mean? Or the solo self-found hardcore ladder. If you're playing in softcore trade league, there's no leaderboard. There's nothing. You have goals for yourself. Your goal should be I want to kill this boss before I quit playing this league. Your goal should not be, I'm going to make an angry post on Reddit because Empyrean has this awesome build that I can't touch. I've killed Uber Elder and Cirrus on garbage gear. I mean, just absolute trash. Now, it takes a long time and game knowledge and practice and stuff to get to that, but I guess my point is, you don't need a mirror's worth of gear to get to the end game. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure. You just have to have the right build, which comes with the game knowledge part of it. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing when they go after things like that. Loot needs to be easier to acquire. And I think the one thing GGG could probably do to help out somewhat is make it so that more skills were viable. Right?
Oh, yeah. If more skills were viable, that would be sweet.
Well, I mean, think about it this way. If there were fire skills that were as viable as the lightning skills, spells is what I'm talking about, sorry. If there were fire spells that were as viable as the lightning spells, then fire gear wouldn't be a third of the price of what lightning is.
Right.
And we kind of saw that this league a little bit because of, whatchamacallit?
Harvest. With crafting and whatnot. Like, you could literally make any build work this league.
No, I was talking about because VD was popular. Fire gear.
Oh yeah, that brought that up. Cold gear's been a little low lately, at least on the spell side.
Right, and I think what a lot of people need to recognize too is it's almost, if you can only play 10-20 hours a week, because the meta changes every league and because the patch changes the meta every league, those good builds that you can build on the cheap aren't discovered yet, like for the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks of the league.
There's always ones that like the ones that don't get changed or the ones that were almost meta, like good enough.
There's a few standard ones. There's always like mines and specters and all that stuff, which Spectres might get nerfed this league, but they're still going to be good. That are pretty cheap to put together. There's certain old standbys, but once again, if you don't have the game knowledge to know what those are, or those don't fit your play style, there's not one of those for every play style.
Yeah, that's a big thing I think is a problem in Bath is just, well, that's a little off topic. We'll have to talk about that later, but is the fitting your play style, because I really hate that so many builds that look cool are like 5 buttons constantly.
And it's, well, I kind of get why they do that to a certain extent, because that kind of, it's kind of a balancing act, right? Like,
right.
Mines is always going to do a lot of damage, and it's always going to be good, and that's because it's a 2 to 3 button playstyle. ED is always going to be great at clear because it's a 2 to 3 button playstyle.
Right.
So that kind of makes sense to me in some way, because the more you invest into it, and in this case it's clicks and attention, the more you should get out of it. So, like, I kind of agree with that to some extent. But there should also be builds that are just good and easy to play, which, like, Spectres could be, but even that's got 8 buttons and everything hot mapped all over the place, or key bound all over the place. But like Cyclone or whatnot. Cyclone, or, you know, like, I guess Earthshatter was kind of this league for melee, is just that kind of cheap build. You don't even have to put much in, and you can pretty much clear everything. As far as in-game bosses, you played Earthshatter a bit this league, didn't you?
Yeah, Earthshatter trucks. Earthshatter trucks hard. It's just you have to hit, you know, you're playing piano the entire time on top of the flash piano, so it's not like, I wouldn't say it's super starter friendly, because you have a whole it's kind of like WoW, you have a whole rotation of stacking war cries and whatnot to maximize its DPS.
That's fair. It'd be nice if, like, Cyclone or even like Ground Slam or Earthquake or anything was that kind of melee skill that's easy to play. Well, I guess Lacerate was kind of. Steel was doing that during the races, wasn't he?
Yeah, but it requires some gear. You have to go, like, pretty hard on the bleed route if you're going to go his way, and that requires, like, an Elder Axe and whatnot. You know, it's just, like you said earlier, game knowledge, you know?
Right. Yeah, it was hard to kind of pay attention this league to see what builds were good on weaker gear and which ones weren't, because gears came so fast, it's hard to kind of judge a build. This league. It
didn't matter what you played.
I mean, hell, I made Impale Spectral Throw work.
Right.
Now, granted, I might have had a Mirror Tier sword and Mirror Tier, like,
everything.
Close to everything else, but yeah, that thing was nuts. But I guess it even if it can't be fixed, you know, the fight between the two sides, I think both sides need to understand that both sides need each other, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Without all the no-lifers, you wouldn't have all the build guides, you wouldn't have all the videos, the how-tos.
The streams, the live feedback.
Right, and Path would become almost infinitely harder.
Well, that's not just Path. You know, that's...
Well, yeah, I shouldn't have just said Path, but that's almost every game, you know what I mean? Like, even World of Warcraft.
Well, look at even Destiny. Like, what's your Crucible loadout without ZK Mushroom and Frostbolt and these other guys that aren't just amazing at, you know, clicking pixels on their cursor, but also show you how to build loadouts that are good, or without Glad and Datto and all the PvE guys that go real hard, and you get a sense of this works on this boss, or this is how we do this boss, or this is how we do this mission, or whatever it is you're doing for the week. You know what I mean?
Right. Without all those no-lifers that build all the third-party sites and whatnot. Not all the no-lifers do that and produce guides and whatnot.
Right.
But, I mean, even the ones outside of that don't, they're the ones that are farming your thread of hope. They're the ones that are carrying, sherping in Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
They're your friends that, pull you into a raid in WoW,
or they carry you through a Mythic Plus or they whatever.
Carry you through Mythic Plus, or they dump you a 6-link when you start PoE for the league. You
right.
know what I mean? And so and the casuals are definitely needed, because without that, you won't have
a game.
Yeah, you won't have a game. Period. There won't be enough people playing it to generate enough money to keep the game going. So it's both sides are hugely needed. And I know there's a lot of games have found a good middle ground between the two.
Yeah, I'd say
overall, I think some games have a ways to go yet on it, but if they want to even bother, and I guess that's really a decision for the people making the games. But,
well, and it's funny because you look at some games that we're kind of in a good spot where it's people nitpicking, oh, I don't have enough time, or that guy does have enough time, where Diablo 3, the player base is pretty much united, or it was when Diablo 3 was still super popular. It was united because all of their hate got focused against the botters, right? So,
oh yeah, there's nothing unites people like a common hatred.
Yeah, right. So Diablo 3 actually had one of the better communities online, I would say, as far as being at odds with each other.
Well, Diablo community's enemy is Blizzard.
Period. Yeah, exactly.
Look at the Diablo Immortal reaction and all kinds of other stuff.
So I guess if you're playing a game where you have to defend your viewpoint of, well, I can play all the time, or I play for my job. You're a streamer, you're a YouTuber, you're a content creator of any kind, versus someone that only has limited time to play every week. That's a pretty good spot for a game to be in, right? Because I'd rather play a game like that where it's those going back and forth bickering of, well, I don't have time for that. Oh, well, you just need to get better. That kind of bickering versus our game is being ruined by bots or by shoehorned shitty decisions.
Right. When the player base has turned against themselves, well, I don't want to say turned against themselves. That's definitely the wrong phrasing. When the player base is arguing about things that are near impossible for the dev to fix,
right? Yeah,
without alienating one side or the other just completely.
Well, any aspect of life comes down to how much time you can put into something, right? What made Michael Jordan so great? For example, couldn't be that he practiced thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of hours of basketball, right? Because he was not just LeBron James, naturally God-gifted talented. He clawed and worked his way over. And how many times do you see Bob from your accounting department at your place of work being like, man, I ain't got the time to put in Michael Jordan. That's bullshit. I can't go out there and dunk. I can't hit fadeaways and drain them from 21 feet. It doesn't happen. But with games, I guess it's different.
Well, it's different because it's not physical. It's more mental, right?
Right.
And that's not something you can measure by looking at something.
I guess that's kind of another thing, too, for dungeon crawlers and ARPGs in general, right? Because looter shooters and WoW all have a lot of skill base to them for the upper end stuff, as far as movement, rotations, and then just aim. So I guess people assume they should be better at a Diablo or Path of Exile or Wolcen type of game. They don't feel that the gap should be as large, right? Because there isn't near the mechanics or...
Well, yeah, but the ARPGs put that... There's always an investment for a game, right?
Right.
So, yeah, if you're playing Apex, that investment is you got to get good at aiming.
Right.
For Destiny, you got to get good at aiming. You know what I mean? Division, you got to be good at aiming, and that's the skill component of that. For an ARPG, more on the lines of Diablo 2 or Path, there's not that. There's a little bit of skill to be had in game, but most of it is for avoiding damage. right?
Yeah, as far as straight mechanics go, right?
As far as straight mechanics go, your equivalent for aiming, it's avoiding damage. As far as what makes you good at the game, though, in an ARPG, yeah, there's that avoiding damage.
But it's not.
Point.
It's knowledge.
But it's knowledge, right? It's memorizing that boss's combat patterns, for example.
Yeah.
So I think we're about ready to wrap this one up. So to finish up this episode, like we've been doing, what's new, Mr. Ringo?
The new Borderlands DLC video hit for Senior Krieg, who he's one of my favorite characters in the game. He's hilarious. I've missed him in Borderlands 3 for sure.
Yeah, I think it'll be really sweet to see Krieg come in. I like how this DLC is really going to give them license to go completely off the rails.
Yeah, I've slacked. I haven't played the last one, the Wild West one, just yet. Just because a Path League hit when it hit, and I'm dead to the world for the first month of a Path League, pretty much.
Right. Yeah, we'll have to get around to that soon before the new one launches, just so we're caught up, kind of. So, what have you been playing this week?
I have fallen back into Destiny 2 because I haven't played it since, I want to say January.
Gotcha. Anything new and exciting that you've noticed?
I like the new Umbral Ingrams, but I think they're going away. I don't know. The Beyond Light, the fall expansion that comes out in November, is going to change a lot of stuff. But the thing I love that's new is the sword that comes with the Battle Pass. Even the free, it comes with the free part of the Battle Pass too, not the purchase part.
Right.
Has this mechanic where you can Cyclone Whirlwind Spin, and it trucks, and it is probably the most fun I've ever had in Destiny. Well, that doesn't feel like cheating because something was Prometheus Lens being bugged for a week is the most fun I've ever had in Destiny.
You're a fan of the laser light show fights?
Yeah, all that 0.2 second time to kill average was fantastic. But no, I got right back into that, and I think I'm probably done with the Path of Diablo League. It's fun though. I still say check out Path of Diablo for sure.
Yeah, it's a blast, especially if you did play Diablo 2 and you're nostalgic for it, or even if you didn't play Diablo 2 and you want to try it out. Path of Diablo is probably a better way to try it out than just on Battle.net.
Yeah, it's a lot harder on. I think that Diablo 2 is a lot harder because you're shoehorned into a lot more.
It's the synergies, right?
Yeah, there's too many builds you're forced to. It's a lot more diverse playing Path of Diablo. And there's some quality of life stuff in there that's pretty fun too.
Yeah, there's a good amount of quality of life stuff that makes it really interesting and quite a bit easier, in my opinion, to pick up and get going.
Right.
But it hits all those same nostalgia notes.
So what have you been playing this week?
Yeah, I've been playing a couple of different things. As far as the looter game, I was playing Path of Diablo, and then Wasteland 3 came out, and now I've got no new addiction. I'm 20 hours in right now, something like that.
How you liking it?
Oh, it's incredible. I have a thing for all kinds of tactical role-playing games, strategy role-playing games,
right?
The Final Fantasy Tactics, the XCOM, all that stuff. But yeah, I absolutely love it. The coolest thing, in my opinion, is the story matters, and it actually forces you to make decisions that affect probably the rest of your playthrough.
Right.
And it's really complex on all the nitty-gritty stats, but I know every game's we have branching storylines and yada, yada, yada. This one, actually, I feel like they did it. I'm not far enough in to tell, obviously, if they did it all the way through or not, but just from what I've noticed so far, there's a lot of certain doors closed to you if you choose certain things and certain ones open. And they're all kind of morally ambiguous, right? The first time I was able to step foot out into the wild, there was a distress call coming from a estate near there, a family farm.
Right.
They were being attacked by bandits, basically. At the same time, I got a call from a caravan that was hauling power armor that was being attacked by bandits also. And you only get to go do one.
Oh, so it's like the old train tracks. Which one do you save?
Right. Which one do you save? Do you go save the caravan and try to get the power armor, or do you save the family of people that are only being attacked because of a previous action I had done?
You get the power armor.
Nah, I went and saved the family. They gave me rewards. They gave me a bunch of ammo and stuff.
Did you get power armor?
I did not get power armor.
You know what would have been sweet?
And the thing that scared me,
is if you got power armor.
The thing that scared me, though, is those bandits are a group that I have to go up against later, and now they have power armor. Like,
that's terrifying.
Like, I'm pretty sure when I run into them, they're going to be wearing it.
Oh, that sucks.
And that's...
Teach you to try to provide for the greater good of your neighbor, dumbass.
Well, I'm like, it's not even that. I'm not even going to say that. It's completely selfish on my part, because I was hoping I would get recruits. For my ranger squad, right? Like,
that makes sense.
Or for my base, you know what I mean?
Oh, we forgot to talk about the pinnacle of gaming that we've both been playing this week.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, the new 2K21 golf game.
Oh, man, we have been playing way too much of that this week.
We have slammed that. We are whores for golf. We do not golf IRL at all. Not even a little. But you put pixels on my screen of a golfer, man. You got me for 50 hours. I'll tell you that.
Oh yeah, I mean we were hooked on the old ones, the old Tiger Wolf or Tiger. Why did I say Tiger Wolf?
What was it? Tiger Wolf?
That's what I said. No, Tiger Woods Golf. I think I mixed woods and golf together and came up with Tiger Wolf, which is actually kind of awesome.
No, it can't be awesome. You know how everybody like on Facebook, all the hard asses and shit, they wear like the lone wolf, born to hunt, born to roam bullshit t-shirts.
3 Wolf Moon t-shirts.
Yeah, you just like evolved it, and now like someone's gonna go up a level. Like, yeah, I'm the lone wolf and a tiger.
I'm a tiger wolf.
You accidentally just made a new copy pasta, I feel.
I hope not. All right, well, I think that about wraps us up for this episode. Join us next time for Battle Pass the Salt. And if you have any suggestions, comments, feedbacks, anything, feel free to hit us up. And have a good week.
See you guys next week.